Thank you so much for joining me, Jared and Tony, to talk about technical debt. My name is Ken McDougall, and I'm just going to set some of the goals for this conversation right now. The first is just to understand the importance of having this conversation around deliberately prioritizing technical debt. The second is we want to make sure to spread the word that technical debt is a good conversation to be having. And the third is that conversation needs to be a balanced team of product management, design, and engineering so that you can accurately have a good understanding of your product story to be able to share this context with stakeholders, customers, and other teams in your space. But in order for us to achieve any of those goals, I think it's important for us to have a good understanding of what technical debt is. So Jared, can you help us out with that?
Sure, Ken. Yeah. Technical debt, you could think of the cost of additional rework from choosing an easy solution now instead of something more complicated. And you intentionally chose something, simple or quick and dirty because you wanted to, move quicker at this point in the project, or you wanted to reduce risk and you thought maybe I don't need something more complicated. I might not need this at all. This could be in the code. It could be in the design. It could be in the backlog as well. So really everyone accrues it. I think it's everyone's responsibility to address it and bring it up, not amongst the team, but also with clients and stakeholders. So Tony, once you've established it and you know that maybe it's becoming an issue, how do you get it prioritized?
I think it depends, specifically on the context of your team. Understanding the context of your team helps you decide when and how your team can create time to refactor. I try and prioritize tech debt with every decision. In my experience, in real time during pairing is super impactful. The objective is to be deliberate in our decision-making for the benefit of later. Also, don't forget to slow down to speed up. Ken, I'm curious in your perspective as a PM, why is it important to understand tech debt for a product?
Yeah. One of the biggest things is being able to accurately tell your product story. You talked about understanding the context of your team, and that context includes the technical debt that you're accumulating over time. And it's important that you have a clean understanding, not only as your team, but as the stakeholders for a product, that they know why technical debt is happening and that it's not an accumulation of mess or mistakes that the team is making, but a series of deliberate decisions to get value into the hands of users faster so that either A, they're benefiting from it, or B, you're able to learn and buy down risk, cost, and waste on your team. So with that being said, you don't always know as a product manager when that conversation about technical debt needs to happen. Tony, as an engineer, how do you bring that up?
I would first say becoming an advocate for addressing tech debt is always helpful. From there, I suggest develop a loosely held strong opinion about your code base. Something else I'd recommend is pairing with your PMs to create space that can actually empower your engineers to have that conversation. And when making time, try and be considerate of communicating your intent, managing expectations, and be aware of your team size. Often you have people joining and leaving your team. Speaking of team size, Jared, how can team churn affect tech debt?
Yeah, whenever you have people rotating through the team, you risk losing any established norms. And those could be around tech debt. What is an acceptable level of it? How often do we want to address it? So you could risk losing that standard on your team, but the fresh eyes can also give a new perspective on existing tech debt. Maybe it's not as bad as you thought, or maybe it's worse than you thought. So there's pros and cons. But so that's one thing to look for to see if tech debt is causing issues on a team. Is there anything else, Ken, at the PM level that you can tell from the backlog that tech debt might be causing problems?
Yeah, absolutely. Outside of people bringing it up to say, hey, Ken, look at this technical debt. We're slowing down a lot. 4 things I might be looking for as a product manager are indications of those slowdowns, like velocity decreasing. That might mean that I need to open the space for a conversation about how might we address some of that technical debt. Another thing is that story scope creep is happening. Perhaps there are a pair of engineers that are working either a lot longer on a story than they originally expected, or they're noticing that they're having to uncover some unknowns and bring those back to the team to explain what's happening there. And get everybody on the same page. The third is that estimates are going up. So in IPM, a story last week that was 1 point is now 2 points this week. And the last that during acceptance testing, bugs are actually increasing. You're noticing more bugs in the application. That might mean that the complexity is going up. And there's more things being affected that you need to have a clear conversation as a team in order to uncover and understand that. Similar to the conversation that we're having right now, that's just one way for us to start talking more about technical debt and getting it prioritized deliberately. But walking away from this conversation, Jared, what are the key takeaways you want people to have?
The tech debt is okay. It's normal and it's okay to accrue it, but you can't keep pushing it off. You eventually need to pay it down, or it's going to kind of grind your project to a halt potentially. So talk about it regularly and just be deliberate in making time to pay it off.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jared and Tony, for joining me to talk about technical debt today. I hope you both have a wonderful rest of your day. This was awesome.